We sat down with professional esports commentator Jamie Martin, aka the Eternal J, and we'll be sharing with you what it's like to work in the industry.
There's MoistCritikal in with a triple or pick back. Now two left standing. IM and Isaac hold their positions. One at backside naded out. MoistCritikal suspects that he might be there. He's looking for his way as Game Allegiance stall the time. Flashes in. IM forced away. Isaac with a kill. 2-on-2. Hunter detected. IM with the frag. MoistCritikal with it all to do. He gets the wall bang in and hunts for the last man. He's got the kit. Needs the ace. Only hits the leg shot. The USP comes out, but it's a cold day in hell.
On this podcast episode, we're going to get all the dirt on the behind the scenes of the esports industry. We're going to work out how Jamie can be on a broadcast for 9 hours without having a piss. That's not bad. What is the esports industry and why are millions watching? And will the industry continue to grow or will it blow its load?
Leave that in, please.
So you are a professional esports commentator. What first inspired you to kind of head down this path?
Money.
Money. It's always
joking.
the world revolves around money.
I'm joking. So actually, I used to be a broadcast student. I went to college actually with Luke. It's how I know the guy. It's how I'm on this podcast. Fuck you. I went to college originally for broadcasting, and I was hoping that I'd also translate that into like a broadcasting career, a degree. And I went to Birmingham City University for that. But the university thing didn't really work out. What I was doing alongside all of this, I was playing competitive video games. Mm-hmm. I was competing at a small level, a very, very intermediate kind of level. And I always knew about what was going on in the industry at the times. And then eventually I just got the opportunity to start doing some low-level student league casting, broadcasting stuff. So I picked it up. I was always already within my wheelhouse. It's just the only thing I didn't have was the commentary skills. And it just turned out I had a really good knack for that. I dropped out of university after I got an opportunity with a company called Face It. And then everything was just both barrels loaded and history from there pretty much.
So now we can get onto the question, which is the super like noob level question.
See,
of like,
most people start with that because it's like it's very confusing to everyone. Just be like, oh, what the fuck does he do? When you haven't even explained the background of actually what the industry actually is.
Basically, what you do, mate, is this is what triggers people. You just be like, why are you like just watching people play video games? Oh, you're just talking about video games for a living. Oh, like,
why do you watch football, dickhead?
We thought it'd be funny to start off by asking Callum, who isn't even a gamer, knows nothing about gaming, to describe what esports is, and then we'll have Jamie actually give a educated
and just to give full context first, right? Listen, Callum knows absolutely nothing about esports
beyond what Luke and Ross have said, which might be very
and I know some things about esports, and then Ross is a massive fanboy and will probably kiss your feet.
Yeah, later. Off camera.
So that's the different levels of enthusiasm. Callum, what is esports?
Esports is gaming, games, things like massive multiplayer online games, MMPOG, I think, where, I don't know, I'm just phraseology.
What the fuck is a POG?
I don't know.
Is he meant to say MMO?
MMO. So where people play games often very competitively in arenas, and it's like sport, but it's a game, and you know people win leagues and.
Do you know?
It's like an email, but instead of mail, it's sport.
Do you know what? When you say that, I was going to say I've heard many different explanations, very poor explanations down the years as to
what's the worst one?
That I was just gonna. You've gone through. You've said a lot of things without saying anything at all about what esports actually is.
Classic politician, right there.
Yeah.
You know. The easiest way to explain what esports is literally just competitive leagues in video games.
Yep.
In the same way that you have competitive leagues in football or rugby or tennis or whatever. That's basically what it is, except we have competitive leagues in Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Dota 2,
Striking,
Rocket
countering
League.
What? Sorry? I'm joking. I know what it is.
You're not that stupid.
And is it done on sort of a national, regional, international basis?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them,
okay.
yeah. Actually, yesterday I was commentating the UK National League. for Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And then last week, I was in Norway to do an event which was based in Norway with all the teams attending Norway. But we had a Danish squad, we had an international mix of nationalities in one team, a Finnish squad, and another Danish team actually, and two Swedish teams. So we had quite a lot of there's obviously like quite a mix, and then you kind of start from a national base in the same way that you have in the, I don't know if you guys know much about the football league structure, but you start very regionally. You have the counties cups, and then eventually you go on to like a regional sort of like North and South division. Then you go into the National League and you promote up to League 2, League 1, Championship, Premier League. That's basically like kind of similar in that sort of sense, but we've more just like National League, then Continental League, and then worldwide events, pretty much. At least for my esport. Again, they're very differently structured depending on which one you go to.
Yeah.
So where are you right now in terms of
me personally?
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult to define that actually, because like as a commentator, you just kind of do a mix of everything. Like again, yesterday I was doing the UK stuff. Last week I was doing something on a low-level international scale. In November, I was doing a full-blown arena pretty much. So like it varies from person to person. Personally, I define myself as tier 1.5, which is like I'm not quite within the top brass, but I'm not also one of the plebs that are sort of grinding away. So
so I wanted to get to that. So kind of hear a bit about your like progression. You've been doing this a number of years now.
This is my 8th year doing it.
I mean, what inspired you in the first place?
Just like video games, didn't it?
I like video games. I'm not inspired to work in esports. Surely there's a. I mean, at college you always liked radio. I think.
Yeah,
It must have stemmed from that.
Yeah, like I said when I was talking about my initial rise, like the skill set was kind of already there, particularly with the broadcasting stuff. Because back then in 2015, sometimes you were just a commentator only, and you had to do all the production, all the commentary, all the preparation, all that sort of stuff, whilst also doing irregular duties as an actual commentator. And like. In that sense, the skill set was kind of already there. It translated very easily, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to do the job itself. Even like the stuff that you would kind of consider as like boring shit, like preparation work. It's like it's so fascinating once you get into the nitty gritty of what it all is. So there's a lot to sort of pull from it. It's also very gratifying as well. Like the one thing I always come back to was in November, we did this arena event, and it's like having all that work build up to an incredible broadcast. You sat there, you got 8,500 people in the fucking stadium, and it's your voice that's echoing around that room. That's so fucking like euphoric. It's unreal, man.
Yeah, and you know the idea of your job is to watch high-level video games, like the game you would have been watching. Like I'm sitting at home watching it for free, right? You get to do the same.
I get paid to do it instead.
Get paid to do it, right? So I can definitely see the appeal.
It's like the dream job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in terms of like getting up the ladder, right? So everyone's going to start at the kind of, what is it like? Because, you know, for my money, like the Counter-Strike commentators are like the best out of like any sport.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Like the level of talent is insane.
I told you once to kiss your fucking toes.
Could I ask what is Counter-Strike?
We have a good question for Callum.
So Counter-Strike is a game, pretty much. Like it's like.
Do you know Call of Duty?
Yes.
Okay, it's like that, but less running around going fucking crazy and more strategy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have you have various different games, and each of them are sort of like their own little disciplines.
Yeah.
Like again, Counter-Strike is one, League of Legends is another, and then it's basically,
still doesn't know what League of Legends is.
No, I know the name.
Yeah, but they're different kind of games. In the same way you'd have Call of Duty and Mario Kart and fucking I don't know, Candy Crush.
You just went for like the most popular examples.
That's where you have to go when you're trying to explain it to somebody who doesn't know much about it.
Have a different kind of skill set for different games.
And I would say as well, Counter-Strike, there's a difference. A game can be really popular and have no esports scene, but a game can be like Counter-Strike. You might not have heard of it, but it's one of the. I would say it's one of the top three, absolutely up there with like League of Legends. Again, League of Legends.
Oh yeah, it's got like 1.4 million players.
Whereas like FIFA, you would have heard of, has no esports scene. So just because a game's popular doesn't mean it's going to be a big esport.
And sorry, I've gone off on a tangent here. What makes, you say like there's certain games which are popular as an esport. What is it that's the main proponent for that? Is it, constructive work with the developer, or is it, it's just got a big fan base?
It's funny actually, because very rarely like you actually find that there's a game that gets like that gets far because of developer involvement. Like, there's Riot Games who are the only ones who have been able to do it relatively well, but there's developers like Activision Blizzard who haven't been able to push some of their games very well at all. And then you've got games like Counter-Strike, which is the one that I'm part of, which actually has zero developer involvement at all. Oh, okay. Valve does not touch the game outside of 2 events per year. And even then, that's just a sponsorship. They give it to someone else. Like, you run it, here's $1 million. Now, fuck off. Pretty much.
Blizzard can't get any of their games pushed in esports because they're too busy touching up their employees.
I don't think you can include that. If it's not being proven in a court.
Well, I mean, they settled their suit.
Okay. That's the correct stance to have.
I'm going to plead the fifth on this one, I think, lads.
Yeah. I mean, fuck Blizzard, but yeah, let's move on. No, I think that was a really good question, actually. And it was something we wanted to ask you, which is like, what makes a popular esport? You've chosen specifically to go for games like Counter-Strike, Rocket League. What is it that, one, makes them a good esport, and two, kind of what drew you to those games to want to commentate those games?
Oh, to answer your your second question
Money.
first. Money. Yeah, no. To answer your second question first, what draws me into various games is more about my interest in them specifically. Like, if it was just money, I'd be doing League of Legends right now.
Okay,
but I have zero interest in doing that game at the moment. I played it a little bit. I actually played it competitively for a time, but just to be honest, I just don't enjoy broadcasting it because there's so much to get in your head and I'm just not really capable of handling that much information. But the rates are some of the top in the industry right now. Same thing for Valorant as well, although Valorant I'm a little bit more inclined towards because it is a bit of an FPS game. So games like Counter-Strike, I've been playing that for like 14 years. 2009 is when I first picked up Source. And then Rocket League I've been playing since it launched in 2015. And that has a very interesting concept in that it is basically car football. So like that has a lot of like growth room potential, and it's also very different pacing to what I was doing before with the Counter-Strike stuff. So that's where my interest comes in, and that's the reason why I've also moved into other games like PUBG. I really enjoy the Battle Royale thing. I think PUBG paces it really well. It's a shame it's not as a big a game as it could be.
I would say games like Counter-Strike and Rocket, it's actually easier to understand. It's
Yeah.
Like Callum could understand the concept of car football, but if we try to explain to him League of Legends, one, I don't have a clue either. And
How do you explain that?
Yeah.
We'd be here for 10 hours.
So like that's to answer your first question. What makes a good esport is that it's the two basic rules are easier to understand, but hard to master. So like Counter-Strike is very easy because you can tell when someone guy's winning because first of all there's a big scoreboard at the top, and second of all you can see that guy shot that guy fell down, therefore that guy is winning, pretty much. Like it's
Rocket League simple. You scored a goal.
Exactly, right? So like you have that very basic level that a complete moron can understand it, but as you get more involved, you understand why that guy was able to shoot that guy and get that kill. Why this team is now in an advantageous position despite the other team being on top of the board. Why this goal was super sick in a Rocket League event. That's like when I was
watching football, but it was before I knew what the offside rule was.
Pretty much.
It's like those kind of.
Pretty much. But it's like,
well, that doesn't make sense.
But it's like on a very basic level.
It went in the net. What are you talking about?
Exactly. But on a very basic level, you understand that guy put that ball in that net, therefore that team is winning. Then you get into the differences between like the defensive players, the where you put the players, like your formation, the strategies, the tactics, the way they play the balls, the qualities of each individual player. Like all these things apply to esports in the same sort of fashion, but you always have that basic level of man shoot ball. That's what makes a good esport in my eyes. That's why Counter-Strike has been so successful.
And ones that have like a high skill level range.
Yeah. It's that's what I'm saying. Like Counter-Strike and Rocket League are that. They have that
so we were talking about on the car over here when I picked you up. It's like, why couldn't Mario Kart be an esport? I was like, look, I feel like at Mario Kart during COVID, I was like fucking peak. You couldn't get any better at Mario Kart than how I got at because there's a skill cap. Once you know how to drift, once you know how to, there's only so much skill you can get. So with Mario Kart, come on, like unless you know how to like. Fucking cheat speedrun stuff. I don't know.
So I reckon. Well, that's another thing as well. The game needs to be robust enough to not allow shit like that to be a thing. But honestly, I reckon Mario Kart could be a banging esport. The other problem that we have with esports is that because they are made by the developer, they own the copyrights to those games, and so if they want to, they can shut them down in any capacity. So we're lucky in Counter-Strike because Valve have said we don't really care. But Valorant is difficult to run an event for because Riot Games have a monopoly and they don't want to let anyone else do their thing. Overwatch is another example where Blizzard don't want anyone to do their thing. And then Nintendo is the worst of the lot because they have like a couple of really cool esports IPs, like Smash Brothers is a prime example. That's amazing competitive game, and they've had like a competitive circuit.
All I know is they keep cancelling tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, there was this whole like Panda. There's this Panda circuit which they were going to do, which is going to be like one of the biggest
Panda
circuits.
circuit?
No, there was like a company called Panda Esports or something. Okay. They were going to run their Panda circuit pretty much, which was going to be like an amalgamation of a bunch of smaller organisers doing a bigger thing. That got canned. Or either they were a company that forced another company to can their circuit. There's a lot of fuckery going on there because of Nintendo's own sort of position and the relationships they had within the companies themselves. And then you have things like Splatoon, which has a couple of small community organisers.
Splatoon is actually, that would be cool.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like, but they have a couple of small community organisers, but no one's done anything big because Nintendo have such a reputation of basically saying, no, we don't really want to do esports things. So they have their own little championships, which is literally just made for children. And they're just like, right, we'll invite people under 10 years old who can come compete at our, European Championship, which we do at our little fucking expo stage at EGX or something. Yeah, that's the problem, right? Like, no, they don't treat it as a sport. Whereas that's what the difference is between... That's another thing as well. Like, developers have this idea that just esports is just a marketing gimmick. Nintendo are the worst in that sense because they just treat it as marketing. And then there are other companies that, again, they treat it as like an actual sport. Like, there's an actual industry here. And that's a key difference in terms of the attitudes towards the esport itself, towards the game. And that can break a lot of esports in general. It doesn't make it, but it is the kind of thing where if you have something... If you have lightning in a bottle... You can throw it away in an instant like that.
Yeah. And esport, for people who don't know, if you compare it to like traditional sports, no one owns football. FIFA might have a huge part in tournaments and whatnot, but no one owns cricket, no one owns tennis. With esports, you've got all these people that want to compete, but you've got someone with the keys. And if at any point they go, you don't have rights to host my tournament, compete in my game, do whatever, they can take the whole thing away. And that's kind of what Nintendo do, which is like, they freak out because it's their IP and other people are doing stuff, and they can just take the keys away.
I guess it mostly comes down to a company culture kind of thing, isn't it? And Nintendo, I think, are fairly litigious a lot of the time across a number of elements.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the guy that's going to be paying like 30% of his salary now because Nintendo won a successful lawsuit?
What was that story?
Yeah, so there was this guy that just got out of jail. He got prison time for distributing...
Playing Zelda?
No, he was distributing ROMs of Nintendo games.
Oh, I think I've briefly heard about this.
Nintendo sued him for so much money.
Was that like a mod?
I don't think it was a mod. I think it was an emulator, an emulation thing. So because he got some, I don't remember the details. I think it was an emulation thing. He was distributing ROMs, and Nintendo sued him. They got jail time and so much of a settlement that basically they calculated that he'll be paying 30% of his salary for the rest of his life to Nintendo.
I think I saw that. Yeah.
So litigious is one word of saying it.
So listen, I'm still gonna play Zelda Breath of the Wild 2.
It's so frustrating.
It's Tears of the Kingdom, you moron! Like, I didn't order my special Nintendo, like my special Zelda edition Nintendo
that pissed
Switch.
Me off. He's like, I've pre-ordered the new Zelda console, like skinned Switch, but he hasn't bought the game
because the game's not out for another week and a half.
Oh. Fine.
That explains it.
As long as you buy it day one with your new console.
Oh, fuck yeah, of course I am.
The frustrating thing...
That game's going to be amazing.
Okay, I revoke my statement.
There you go. So you're like a lot of things you revoke against me, Luke.
The frustrating thing for Nintendo is you've got all of these people that just love the games. They're so packed. They love the consoles. They love the retro consoles. They want to make content. They want to make remakes of the old portable remakes of the old consoles. They want to mod it. They want to run an esports tournament. They want to play the game. And it's all free marketing. It's all free enthusiasm generated from niche communities about your company, and you're just shutting it down because we're the big company. We're all the guys in suits. We know how to do this properly. Like, it's so frustrating. Like it's so much scope for what could actually happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more just down to Nintendo being like the last company standing from like the original sort of that generation of developers, like because they've been around since the 80s. Sony haven't been around in the gaming sphere since the 80s, and Nintendo haven't been around since that point. Xbox rather haven't been around since that point. Valve only founded in like 1997, I think it was. Like
Sounds
some
about
late 90s
But
sort of
surely all
position.
those people are retired at this point.
Well,
No?
yeah, but it's like the executive have stayed.
The culture's stayed.
So, and the culture remains, and that carries over. So there's always that sort of like thing of like, yeah, the new developers are in, but they have to adhere to the old rule set, basically. Yeah.
So we've mentioned a bit about kind of your experience, how you may have got into the esports and into the commentary side. What is the actual experience like of being an esports commentator professionally?
It's kind of in this weird position where it's like I'm not famous, but I am. At the same time, right? Like, I'm not going to walk down the street and get recognized and suddenly be sworn by fans, but like, to asking for a selfie or anything. But if I ever go to an event, like, there'll be like a good like few dozen people coming to shake my hand, coming to say, hey, let's have a selfie, whatever. And that actually happened at the last event that I went to with the crowd in November. Like, I had people asking me for my signature, asking me to sign their mouse mats and shit like that. And it's like, it's so surreal. But outside of that, I just feel like it's any other job. It's any other like broadcasting job, for example. Like, you might work on these absolutely massive projects, which has hundreds of thousands, millions of people watching, but you just kind of just go home and you just have a cup of tea and just chill with.
Dude, I don't know how you do it though, man. I was watching your videos and it stressed me the fuck out. Like,
Which ones did you watch?
I watched your day in the life of an esports commentator, and then I watched a load of your shorts. And then you told me how you were like broadcasting for several hours at a time as well when we were at the pub and you're talking about it. And I'm just like, dude, I don't know how you can talk for so long about so many things without getting your information completely wrong. Ross jumped at the start of this podcast without taking a piss, you know. How the hell do you do it? Because my nan made a joke saying, "Oh, you could be a good commentator." No. There's a reason we don't record this shit live. It's because I will fuck up. I will say something dodgy. It's broadcasted to a live audience with how many viewers?
And for context, again, if people think of traditional sports, you're going to do a 2-hour maybe commentary with breaks in between. Esports is not like that, as you'll explain, I assume.
Yeah, so typically the regular day sort of has like 2 best-of-3 matches, which can go on for, well, in theory, they can go on forever because we have an overtime rule set, which is just like, well, if one team doesn't win the overtime, we play overtime again, and we'll do it again. And again, like we've
2 days over.
So like regulation matches end in a maximum of 30 rounds in Counter-Strike, but the maximum match we've ever had has been 88.
Yep.
So that's like a good 3 hours.
And in
almost.
Counter-Strike, how long is each round?
Each round is about 2 minutes.
Okay.
So
it does add up a lot of time.
It does add up. So like we generally, as we say, like a map takes an hour. 45 minutes to an hour roughly for one map of a game. So that map took 3 hours alone. And that was one map in a whole series. So one map, one series, maximum 3 hours. That one map took 3 hours, plus the 2 more hours to a 5 hour, just to get one result, just to get one match. So that's problem number one.
Mate, I get pissed off when someone puts in a meeting after 5 o'clock and I'm like, fuck you, I was going home at this time. Like, what are you doing?
And the second thing as well is that usually we do two best of 3 matches a day. So that's a minimum of 5 hours on the better end, because if we get a 2-0, then we don't have to play the third match. That's only 2 hours for the last match. I still have to be there for that 5 hours, 6 hours on the higher end. Everything else is like just more, pretty much. The problem we have with like broadcast timings is so bad that we don't even do hourly rates, we do day rates. Okay. Because it's just not sustainable as a business to be able to give an hour rate. Because if you're in a production team and you have set for like a 9-hour day, you go to 10 hours, that extra hour is paid in overtime. It's just not feasible to do that with how long these days can get. And over the space of, let's say, a week, for example, where you've got a whole tournament to play out there, you might go on for an extra 3 hours a day. That's a lot of overtime paid, and it's just
what's
not
like
feasible.
What's like the average duration of? There's so many different events, right? But say like a high-profile CS:GO event. What would you be on for 1 or 2 days normally?
Oh, well, the high-profile ones have a lot more budget to them, so it's a lot easier for them to be able to justify multiple commentators.
Okay.
So whenever I've done like an ESL conference, for example, it's usually just been a case that we've had 3 matches per day, 2 commentary duos. One duo does the morning game, one duo does the evening game, and the middle game is sort of like swap between the 2. So day 1, it might be the morning duo doing both. The second day, it might be the evening duo doing both, for example. So it can get cut up in that sense. We have had some ridiculous things. Like when we went to COVID, for example, there was this... there were a lot of issues when it comes to the technical side of things. We're still trying to figure things out. And they figured it would just be easier for some of the remote stuff if they just had one commentary duo do the whole day. Which, for the event that we were doing, IEM Katowice, which is a massive event, obviously, so there's no way I'm saying no to that. We basically had like a whole week of 12-hour days, pretty much. Wow. Just because it was like we were still trying to work out how we were going to do transition to the online. Not much. I don't sleep much. We don't do that anymore because we figured it out from now, and we found solutions to everything. But there can be some ridiculous situations in the broadcasting world.
I guess like sort of the adaptation during the pandemic wasn't necessarily a massive shift for you if you do a mix of in-person and non-in-person events, or are they all in-person?
Well, for me, it wasn't that difficult. No. Because like very basically the process. Because back before the pandemic, I did only a handful of like in-person. Okay. We called them offline events because online is in the internet. Offline is outside. So I only did a number of offline events per year.
Esports must have popped off in COVID.
Oh, it absolutely.
Oh yeah, everyone else is cancelled.
So there were two industries. There were two industries that grew during the pandemic. The first one was Amazon because of deliveries.
Yeah.
The second one was esports because we were the only sports discipline to not have to cancel all of our leagues. Mm-hmm. All of them had to shut down for safety reasons, whereas we were just like, all right, we'll just play them all online.
Surely, like air conditioning companies as well with like the heat wave. In COVID.
Maybe.
I mean, I can't say one way or the other because I haven't researched that, but
there's got to be other industries too. That's all I'm saying.
From my point of view, when COVID hit, I stopped watching because I watch mostly the LAN stuff, and when it all went online, when I feel like when the games are online, it's a whole people instead of being on a stage with all the pressure. Maybe you're a young kid who's a really talented gamer, but you've got all the pressure, you're on stage for the first time, everyone's watching you. You can just, most of them, they can't hack it. They need more experience. So when everything goes online, all of a sudden you've got these 16-year-olds in their dressing gown with, flip-flops on, doing really well. It skewed, for me, it skewed the whole, I couldn't tell which team was best because no one was playing these, prestigious events anymore. It was all online. So for me, I stopped watching.
So from the quality of product perspective, it definitely declined. And so for someone like yourself who's already an esports fan, I can see why you want to leave. But we broke records during the pandemic because of the influx of people from outside that wanted that competitive fix that couldn't watch their football, rugby, tennis, Formula 1, etc. And they came to esports for that. Motorsports actually got a lot of great intrigue because there's an incredibly small but dedicated and thriving sim racing community. So the sim racing stuff actually got television broadcast time because all the slots that the F1 is supposed to be played in, they can't play it because F1 can't run. So it was a very weird time. You are right. There was a lot of people that rose up during the pandemic times that haven't been able to sustain themselves because the environment isn't the exact same. But for that period of time, we were doing really well on the audience perspective because there were so many people checking us out because there was literally nothing else to watch.
Yeah. It's another one of the positives that came out of COVID.
One of the very few.
I had a video thumbnail and Ross was like, this is dodgy, right? Because basically one of the thumbnails was why COVID was good.
I was just like,
and then there was no other context.
That's the most clickbait thing you could ever come up with.
So I had that and Ross was like, someone's going to read that and fucking sack you.
That's going to be your little short video. Why COVID was good, esports edition.
Yeah, honestly. There you go. It's the next item.
There's multiple benefits to every tragedy in the world.
I just mentioned the pressure on the player of actually being at the LAN event. What's it like being in the stadium? Now, we record this podcast. We can edit stuff out. We can cut stuff out.
What happens when you fuck up, Jamie?
You're going live for a number of hours. You've also got the community scrutinising everything you do and say. We'll get onto that later.
What's it like dealing with all these Zoomers?
All of that pressure of the audience being there. You want it to be a hype moment.
You learn to deal with it. When you make a mistake, you just have to just push through because you have no other choice. If you start fucking around, just be like, oh no, I didn't mean to say that, but I meant to say this. But and then the moment's gone, you fucking made it worse. So if you make a mistake, you
don't
just have
dig
to
your grave. Basically.
Yeah, pretty much. But as for dealing with the pressure, after as many years as I've done this, you just kind of learn to roll with it.
How did you
doesn't-
learn to roll with it?
By brutalizing myself to the point of just becoming completely numb to any level of criticism from the plebs. that
So if
don't
I
know what they're
just
talking about.
absolutely slated you right now, you'd feel nothing, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I
won't,
feel
'cause
nothing
I'm a
anyway
great
because
friend,
you're Luke,
but
so you know.
I'm a great friend, so I wouldn't do that. But I'm just trying to illustrate.
Just
my
chatting a
point.
load of bullshit, guys. But I mean, that's not to say I'm completely immune to it. Like last year, I've been dealing with panic attacks on streams because the pressure definitely is on, especially when you get told it's like, yeah, you just broke a record. You just got 117,000 viewers fucking watching that moment. There was actually a very significant moment I did last year, which had over 100,000 people watching. Where one of our best teams got eliminated from the major cycle. G2.
What's
G2
G2?
Gamer Legion. G2. You fucking just know this shit, don't you? Because what was it? G2 are a team. They're one of the best teams in the world right now. And back last year when they were doing the Rio major cycle, they came up against a squad called Gamer Legion. And basically it was an elimination game because they had a really poor showing during the other stages of the tournament, and they were like, right, you've got to win 2 from here, else you're not going to Rio. You're not going to the World Championship, basically. And then they fucking lost. And I was on that game, and it was incredibly high pressure because it was like, the whole time I'm thinking to myself, there's no fucking way G2 bottle this. There's no way whatsoever that they lose to this team who, no disrespect to the boys, and I love Gamer Legion with all their hearts, but like they should not have won that match because they were basically a brand new team at that point. They only managed to get through.
The underdogs won.
Yeah, they were significant
Massive
underdogs. Like the team formed like a couple months prior.
Okay.
Like, it was completely new. There's no basis for them to be amazing whatsoever. The names on the roster should not have been able to beat a team like G2. And then G2 lost it, and just so happened 116,000 people were watching at that moment. It's like, when you know that,
to make an analogy, it's like this podcast episode being uploaded and getting more views than Joe Rogan. It's just like, there's no reason this should happen.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
yeah.
it did.
So, were you in the back of your mind like, please G2, because it's a big moment for your career, right? Commentating. Like, were you in the back of your mind and you're like, please lose, please lose, please
Well,
lose?
no, there was a part of me in the back of my
personally.
mind that was more just thinking about like, there's no way G2 can lose. Not like, please do so I can have this incredible call, but I was ready for it. Because I knew in the back of my mind, I was like, there's a real possibility of this happening, so I better be prepared so I can actually deliver it. But in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking to myself, like, it's going to be a really shit major if we don't have G2 involved. So there's
Was this like a moment saying England got to the final of the World Cup?
This is more like
You're
England.
commentating.
It's
on it?
it's more like
getting eliminated by Iceland in
Yeah.
the World Cup qualifier.
it's like the
Okay,
sadness.
fine.
The sadness.
I mean,
mixed
it
with
wouldn't be the
shock.
worst thing England's done, but that's a side tangent.
Ooh, I don't know. That'd be up there. I think. Iceland aren't really a good football nation, are they? So
Yeah, so like they're a tiny country,
Exactly.
massive underdog. We're a football nation. Like that's the.
I'd reckon that'd be
That's
pretty bad.
embarrassing. Yeah.
Yeah. But it actually ended up being one of the biggest moments of my career. Because
So far.
so far, yeah.
Yeah, bad for G2, good for you.
Oh no, fantastic for me.
Swings
I
around
had
the
this.
house.
I had this incredible. So I went the Peter Drury route. And for those of you who don't know, he's like an incredible football commentator. He has like a poetic way to how he does his thing. And I remember when we started getting the inkling, it's like G2 might lose this. I started saying, someone's turned the AC on in hell. It's starting to get a little bit cold here. It'd really freeze over if G2 lost this. And then when they lost, I was like, it's a cold day in hell. And hunts for the last man. He's got the kit. Needs the ace. Only hits the leg shot. The USP comes out. But it's a cold day in hell. And now it's just
I
like
saw
a fucking,
that, yeah.
it's a fucking meme and a half. One of my most viewed Twitter tweets of all time. Everyone in the industry
That
saw
was
it.
such a cool, like, just quote
Yeah.
that
you
you
think of
pulled
that on the
out of
spot?
nowhere.
Well, I didn't think of that one on the spot. Sometimes you do, like that. Sometimes you're just like, you know, a player called Truth. Like we use in-game tags, so we don't. The guy's name isn't exactly Truth, but it's like Truth. That's an easy one. The truth shall set you free. Like you just sort of like just get these things in your head because of the media you consume. We have a coach called Ash, and it's like he's risen from the ashes or some bullshit like that. That one was more planned because I was like, what would be like an unlikely scenario to compare to G2 losing? It's like, well, the cold day in hell is not exactly an uncommon phrase. It's like, oh, hell is frozen over sort of thing. I didn't want to go with that particular route because I thought it would be a bit too harsh.
So that's interesting. Some of these things you're planning in advance. You're
that
thinking
one
of what are the
specifically.
possibilities here.
Yeah.
And here's the great quotes I could pull out if those things happen.
Yeah.
So
A lot
you're
of the- a lot of
predicting
them-
multiple paths.
Yeah, it's like I'm the...
And doing the research.
Isn't there fucking like comic book character? It's like got like a million sort of like futures in his mind. Is it Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
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 Doctor Strange. I'm not that in tune with that sort of thing. It's like I'm like Doctor Strange just with my quotes.
There's only one way to win.
But like that one specifically was a plan. I built that one up from like a good like 10 rounds prior to that.
Yeah,
So.
G2 losing was the 1 in a million envisioned
Yeah, they beat
circumstances.
Thanos. They beat Thanos, yeah. Fucking hell. What's it like traveling around all the time? You have a fucking crazy lifestyle. Yeah, I'm like, do you want to go to the pub? Oh, wait, I'm traveling to this country this week, and then I have 1 day break, and then I'm traveling here, and then I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, and I'm away for this amount of hours. But don't worry, I have a 2-minute pee break.
Not quite that extreme. I actually hate the travel. It's occupational hazard, but it's like, you know, if you've ever flown on a plane, like, you know, like, oh,
I have flown on the plane.
I've got to get to the airport like 3 hours in advance, and I'm going to go through the check-ins, and I got to go for security. And if security stop you to check out your bag, then you got to empty your bags.
You should ask Callum how you can make this easier. He works in aviation. Can you swindle him a deal?
Just fly to better airports, I
Read
guess.
his blog. Plug the blog.
Read his travel blog. Plug in again.
Yeah. I don't really have any tips apart from just be prepared, I guess.
Yeah.
Scout's promise.
You just sort of get used to, you know, packing everything away, and it's a fashion that you can easily access it all.
Yeah, I mean, well, there are certain things like that, but then you get into like, oh, you get on a plane, there's not enough leg room, and you're tired as anything because your flight's at like 9 a.m. So you've been traveling on the train for 2 hours prior to that point, but 5 hours prior to that point because you've got to get there 2 hours early to check in, and then you try and sleep, but there's too much noise. There's a baby crying on the next row
Fucking
forward
babies,
of you.
man. Like, why do
Oh,
people
mate,
have
dude, I
kids?
flew to Dallas for an event. For 15 hours, there was a kid who wouldn't stop fucking screaming. I was like, I'm never having kids. Like, this is not a hell I want to inflict upon anybody in the world.
We're going to invite a mother on as the guest to the next podcast
Why are
to
you
balance
a
this out.
bitch? Like, that's going to be my response to that. And yeah, just that, after a certain period of time, especially when you do it going on the road for like 2-3 weeks at a time, it's just like, it just grinds you down. Everyone refers to it as like a social battery. Like, you go away for a certain period of time, you come home and you have that chance to recharge. And that's really the best way that you can describe it as, because that is pretty much how it kind of operates in that sense. Like,
And so in terms of like the way the events are scattered throughout the year, is it very much like, it's the phrase in the broadcast industry, like feast and famine? You know, you get a lot of one time in certain times of the year, then other parts of the year there's nothing. Is it that kind of a schedule, I guess is the way you'd say it?
yeah, so I explained to Luke actually on a night out.
Yeah.
Basically, so far,
I probably
this,
was drunk and don't remember. But
well, so far it's May 2nd as of when we're recording this. I basically have only really worked, like broadcast worked for like 4.5-5 weeks so far this year.
and by
Last
broadcast work, you mean travelling to an event?
well, traveling to an event or doing something from my home.
Okay.
Okay.
So like, yeah, they're basically like the same process. It's just that the environment's different.
Yep.
So 5 weeks is kind of not great considering last year I basically worked for like 45 weeks. So it's that was a very manic year last year. This year has been the polar opposite so far. So yeah, you do get periods of uptime. Right now, with the financial situation of the world, esports is having issues in that sort of sense. So it hasn't been as easy to secure work in the way that I want it to. So yeah, like it's the same thing as any other freelance gig. Like sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down.
Like my penis.
What platforms do they mostly broadcast via? Is it their owned platforms, or is it?
So the primary platform we use is Twitch TV.
Oh, Twitch. Okay.
There is
Give me your
also
Twitch Primes. Do you know I only learned what a Twitch Prime was like a week
fucking
ago?
hell, Luke! Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
I don't know.
man.
Look, dude, I'm always a YouTube guy. I've never gone on Twitch.
Dear.
So I just, sorry.
But to conclude your question, yes, Twitch is the primary one. These days we also do like dual streaming, so we'll have like one stream for Twitch, but YouTube actually has a really solid streaming platform. It's like basically like a DVR. So you can literally watch the live show, but you can also say, "Oh, I missed that. I'll rewind a few seconds, and
I will always watch on YouTube if it's being streamed
increasingly these days, I find more people are watching on YouTube than they are on Twitch, which is fantastic because honestly, we need more variety because Twitch has a complete monopoly on the on the whole industry.
This shows you like the community reaction. I remember one of the bear in mind, none of like these companies are making any money. One of the tournament organisers struck a deal with YouTube. We're going to exclusively stream on YouTube. The community threw a temper tantrum. They lost their shit. They were like, I can't believe it. I want it to be on Twitch. Da da da. And do you know? And then I think the deal fell through or something. Like it all went to shit.
So there was originally a thing with ESL is the company you're referring to.
Oh yeah.
They originally struck a deal with YouTube to stream their ESL Pro League. Then when that deal expired, there was a little bit of a hoo-ha about it, but people were sort of just like, well, it's this YouTube. We already have YouTube channels anyway, so we'll just sort of just chill and just do that. But then after that deal expired, they struck a deal with Facebook. So that way they can do exclusive streaming on the Facebook thing. And that was blue bloody murder from the entire fucking community. That one was not a pretty one. And to be fair, Facebook was shit. It was god awful.
Yeah.
And you can say that and not like ruin any possibilities.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing. It's just I think if you ask the ESL higher ups, they probably would agree. They probably also say like, yeah, we did. Well, here's the thing, right? They probably wouldn't say
that's
they
like
fucked
a
up.
safe opinion.
Yeah, I don't think they'd say that they fucked up per se because they got all they wanted from their side of the deal. But at the same time, there's a reason they didn't renew it.
And I think you just can't underestimate how entitled like esports fans are because they just want everything for free. They don't want you to strike any deals.
That's the thing, though. That's the thing, though. Right? You mentioned the fucking YouTube exclusivity deal that ESL did. Everyone said no, this is a bad idea. We shouldn't do that back then. Now everyone's like, I fucking love YouTube. It's great that we have multiple options to watch. It's like, where the fuck were you in 2017, dickhead? Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's so wild, man. And
it's that visceral instant reaction before you even try it out.
Yeah,
or
before you even think about what's actually being... And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of people just in general these days. They act before they think. It's like if you took 2 seconds just to have...
Like me.
Yeah. Like Luke. But like if you just took 2 seconds to sort of think about like what it is you're reacting to, it's like actually sometimes you do notice it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Oh, they are a business that are going to strike deals.
They are a business. They do need to make money. If they don't make money, we don't have our thing anymore.
I have to get my free content from a different URL.
Exactly.
Oh no, like yeah. So we wanted to ask about any crazy stories you have from events.
I'm sure you have a lot to say, man.
I know there's a number of horror stories from people about bad events where there's been no food or everything's been going wrong with tech problems. Do you have any personal stories?
I just want to know about your nights out, but you know.
Oh, I can't tell you.
You can answer Ross's question.
I'm sorry, brother. I can't tell you about those, man. I'll get into. I'm not the only person who'll get into trouble if I tell you those fucking stories.
Let's try later.
Yeah. So, in terms of bad events, there was one that stuck out to me, and I'm happy to call these guys out because they're irrelevant in the industry these days. But there was an event called the FCDB Cup, 2017. This was my first international opportunity. The first time I was ever going to fly to an event outside of the UK, and it was in Minsk, Belarus.
Oh, wonderful!
It's already going well.
It's already going. And it was organised unbelievably last second because at the time my good friend and incredible colleague Tom Pickering, he's an absolute legend. Shout out to Tom if you're watching the podcast.
Shout out Tom! Woo!
Shout out Tom, yeah boy. He got an employment opportunity and he had to pull out of the event at the last second, but he referred me to the event manager, and basically it was like over the course of like 3 or 4 days. Or over the course of like 3 or 4 days, I was told like 3 or 4 days prior, I should say, that we need you in Belarus. We'll pay for your hotel, pay for your flight, pay for your food, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, do you know what? It's the best thing going for me. Why not? I'll give it a shot.
No, this time you weren't doing it full time. This was just like
at the time I was doing it full time. Okay. This was like so I dropped out of university at the end of 2016.
Okay.
This was like...
Well, that's a story in itself, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is like October 2017. So it's about a year into the whole like full-time sort of thing. I don't think I was making enough money to be like a full-time person properly. That's by the by. So yeah, we get the dealing together. He gives me the rate, €250 per day. Not amazing, but it's also a relatively small event, and it's my first international opportunity. So I'm not going to say no. So I get the flight details. I go to this event, and I can immediately tell something's off because I walk off the fucking plane, and I swear to God, there is a Soviet soldier standing at the end there with a fucking Yushanka and I shit you not, he looked like a Soviet soldier from the Cold War. Yeah. Like he just stood there, just sort of like making sure there's no fucking nefarious people coming through, and it was like, oh boy, here we go. So
did you look nefarious?
I hope I didn't. I don't think I did because I'm not dead. So I guess I'm not nefarious. Although I'll let you guys be the judge of that. So anyway, I get in. I get through airport security. There's a little bit of faffle because there's like requirements to enter the country with like insurance. They didn't tell me about this, but fortunately there was a kiosk there to buy insurance for 4 days anyway. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll buy some insurance. I'll put it back on the invoice later. There was no invoice. I'll just throw that in there before I forget later. So I get through. I go find the woman there who barely speaks English. This is going to be that will be a common theme throughout this whole fucking story. She barely speaks English. She said, okay, you have to wait for a little bit for the other players to arrive. We're going to get you on a bus and we're going to take you to the hotel. How long am I going to be waiting? Well, their flight lands in 4 hours. What? What the fuck? Could you not just get like a mini van or something and take us there? It's like, no, we have a coach. It's like, this is fucking already fully planned. Okay, fantastic. It's okay. I have a lot of patience. It's my first ever event, so I'm just going to live through this. All smiles and sunshine. Yes.
Well, we all know your first time's the best time.
It's not true.
It's not. It's absolutely not.
I could go on a tangent about my first time, but let's not.
Let's not.
Yeah. I don't think anyone wants to fucking hear that story. Where was I?
Terrible.
Where was I?
Oh, yeah. At the airport.
So, at the airport, the players finally arrive. And then we all get on this big coach. And then we go to the hotel. And to be fair, this hotel is pretty nice. It's pretty good. And I got in and I got my my check-in stuff. I put my bags down. They had to keep my passport so they could get it on the fucking they could get it on the fucking file in the hotel room. And I was like, oh, I do not like this at all. I do not like this at all. Fortunately, it did get back. I did get it back the next morning. But throughout that entire night, I'm thinking to myself, so I can't buy alcohol because I don't have ID.
I'm going to die.
I can't buy alcohol because I don't have ID. If I get in trouble, I'm royally fucked. So I was like, I'm just going to chill here and wait. I get up to my hotel room and I noticed there's 2 beds. And I was like, that's the second key issue and the thing that I struggle with the most. I was sharing with my co-commentator. And I do not do well with sleeping in the same room as other people. So I'm probably operating on about like couple of hours a night at that point. So I was very tired, very fucked, but not as tired as the event staff. When we got in on the Saturday, it was a 2-day event, Saturday, Sunday. We flew in on the Friday evening, had some dinner, whatever. Come in on Saturday morning and everyone is asleep at their desk because there are no like decent worker laws in Belarus. So basically, they got there on the Friday afternoon. They had to rig up the whole stage, the lighting, the broadcast equipment, all over the course of like 15, 18 hours or so, ready to go for the next morning. So they were working all the way through the night, slept basically at the venue because they were that fucking exhausted. And they just woke up and just went to work. And I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is not good at all. At all. This is going to be a fucked up fucking event.
Did it live up to your expectations, which were pretty low?
We'll get to that because it fucking didn't. So
wait, your expectations were higher?
Oh, no. My expectations were low. Like the bar was set pretty low, but it didn't even reach that because because the next thing I find out is that, first of all, the Russian stream, which is going to be the one that's in the arena because it's in Belarus and no one speaks English, is going to be basically like the main production sort of thing. And then they sidechain the clean feed to give it to the English stream, who's going to be given basically to the small team off on the side. I found out that team is made of 2 people, the director and the sound guy, neither of which speak any form of native English at all. In fact, the only native English speaker at that event was me. That's it. That was it. My co-commentator even was
How
Lithuanian.
fucking dare they not speak the most common language in the planet?
That's the thing, though, right? I get that you don't have to speak English all the time, but it's like if you're going to run a fucking English stream, then you should imagine there to be a decent level of English communication among all the staff on that team.
Individual. That can
Exactly. So I'm trying to explain to the guys, like, can you put my volume up? Oh no, I don't understand. I don't understand what you want. I have it all the way up next. I have it up appropriate. It's like, no, I can't fucking hear a thing. Can you put the volume in my headset up, please? I don't know. I can't do it. So, okay, fine. Brilliant. Okay, cool. I guess I'm just gonna be casting fucking death this entire
Most
time.
people would probably quit after that.
I had no choice. I was in fucking Belarus. So
I meant after that event, like in general.
Oh, yeah.
well, the worst is yet to come, Luke.
Okay. Sorry.
So I had to just muscle through this whole fucking thing. Me and my co-commentator, he was fucking, he was younger than me, so he was even more naive. But he was sort of trying to make the best of it because he's from Lithuania anyway, so he's got similar sort of conditions anyway. So we kind of muscle through the event, do as best we can. There's no green room, so there's no way for us to rest. We're dancing between doing both the CSGO stream and there's a FIFA tournament going on as well. So they basically had one match CSGO, one match FIFA, one match CSGO, one match FIFA, and they swapped between the two. So there were a number of matches that didn't get broadcast, which is fair enough. That happens all the time. But in those off-stream moments, we had no green room. There was no way to just sort of like, watch the match and know when what segment was coming up. We had to sit in the corridor, just wait for the other commentators to come out so we could go back in. And in the meantime, there's all these people rushing up and down. There's players fucking trying to find where they need to go. There's staff members. There's camera guys. There's fucking, techies, roadies, whoever the fuck you can see at a production thing. All running up this corridor. Meanwhile, I'm just sat there on my phone trying to get to the shittest Wi-Fi so I can see the fucking scoreline of the match that's going on at the moment. But it was a complete mess. But we get through it. We do the finals. And then we're told, all right, awesome. We're going to go to the after party at a free bar. They're going to pay for the whole bar. I was like, okay, right. This is going to be where it gets good. This is going to be where it gets good. And then we're also told we're also going to pay you at the when we get to the bar. So you guys go ahead. The fuckery started there because we were also told it's like, right, we don't have any euros. We're going to pay you in dollars, $600. Okay, great. That equates to 500 euros. That's fine. That also equates to the same amount as euros translate over to British pounds. So that was also fine. He gets there, he breaks up his $600, hands it off to my co-commentator, and he hands me absolutely nothing. Because what they thought, and what has never been industry standard, ever, in any capacity, was that it was €500 or 250 euros per day between you, not each. So I did this event. I was completely fucking stressed beyond belief. It was the worst fucking thing beyond belief. I had my passport taken. I got the worst production in the world. No one spoke any English, and I only got $300 out of it.
No pain, no gain, bro.
And unfortunately, it was a free bar. Because I was like, you don't want to pay me in my fucking wallet, I'll make you pay there instead. And this is why I can't have rum anymore.
Wow, okay.
I hope you really.
So I've got a load. I'm like a big.
Oh no!
Fan.
I really did. Like I literally turned to the guy, and in the thickest, because he didn't speak English, I literally just said to the guy in the thickest Russian accent I could, "Hello, can you get me rum and cola?" Ah, yes. Okay, how many? Double, 5. Table. I was like, fucking, just line them up, bitch. Just give me it all.
I want to make my money's worth. I'm going to get it back.
I'm going to get my money's worth one way or the other.
And now you hate rum.
And now that shit makes me sick, yes.
It's such a good rum.
You should have got everyone in the place drinks. Like, who wants a shot? It's all on them.
Well, they were doing that anyway, so, it was all
my
good.
God.
But
You know what? It was the first, and it went better from there, right?
it did go better from there, but I was just there, just like, fuck me. Like, it's like you were saying, the first time should be the best time. It wasn't. It was not at all. And for us as well, like when we're built up with this whole avenue of it being the perfect dream job, when you get that opportunity, you think, this is going to be it. This is going to be amazing. And it's absolutely not. It's kind of soul crushing.
I think this story can apply to any field, though. It's just like the first time you do something, you have a certain expectation. It will never live up to it.
Especially in like a broadcast environment where it's live, everything's happening at once. Like,
So,
it's just bound to go wrong.
Or like, maybe I got my dream job at this production company. You're probably just making teas or something. It's not what you expected, or maybe you did expect it, but you're not gonna get there straight away. You're not gonna be doing your most fulfilling creative role or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But you get there in the end.
I remember after the whole money incident, I messaged Tom, and I was like, "You dodged a serious fucking bullet with this one."
Yeah, it's
like,
actually all his fault.
Maybe he deliberately dropped this. This is intentional.
Fuck you, Tom. It's all your fault, dickhead.
I unshout out you. Yeah, fuck Tom.
Hang on, where's the event? Hang on, how much does it pay? Oh, I know someone for this. Like.
We've
secret
uncovered
drama to get leaked here on Mind the
theory.
Gaffes podcast.
Yeah.
Awesome.
These guys you think are friends are actually snakes.
So is Belarus probably not? I'm not going to say the worst country, but the most out there country you've sort of been to so far.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
What's the best?
The best. Oh.
What's like the best place they've taken you, man? Like, surely we've gone from this was shit. What's just amazing?
Oh god, there's a few. To be fair, I've done it for so long now. There's a few candidates for that. Last week in Lofoten was amazing. The city's called Lofoten. It's in the northern part of Norway, and it's basically just like a city in the Alps. Like you walk out of your cabin and you just see this big fuck off mountain. It's like holy shit, what a view! It's absolutely incredible. So from a purely like aesthetical viewpoint, that's pretty decent. A lot of the Scandinavian countries actually are some of the best. Because I've been to Stockholm. It's a beautiful city, expensive as shit, but beautiful nonetheless. We actually got a chance to drive around. When I first went to Stockholm, the company that we were with, ESL, basically had like they said, right, if you guys can drive, just give you a rental car and you guys can get around in whatever way you need to. So it just so happened that the only person that could drive was my co-commentator at that event. So we had the car, and the other duo had to take Ubers everywhere. So I was like, fuck you, Dinko and Hawker. So I love you guys for real. But I do. They should know. So we got a chance to sort of drive around. We drove to like some shops and shit, and we actually got to. We took wrong turnings on occasion. It was like, we found this really cool part of the city, so that was really cool. Espo as well, which was the event in Finland with the 8,500 arena. That was a very nice city. We didn't get to explore much of it, but I did spend my birthday there, so there's always always that little that's always going to be pretty cool.
Little bonus.
Yeah, a little bonus and all that jazz, So.
And is it mostly concentrated? Most of your events, US, Nordics, and Eastern Europe kind of thing?
So Central Europe as well, because we've got Cologne, Germany, Katowice, Poland, and then occasionally it'll branch out, because there was a very like good scene within the CIS, Russian, ex-Soviet sort of orbital satellite states. Obviously, not the case at the moment, but
events in Kiev. There's been events in Kiev.
Yeah, there've been events in
now.
There've been events in Kiev, been events in Moscow,
Romania,
obviously Belarus, Romania. I've been to Romania once. I went to not Budapest, Bucharest. It's shit.
I agree. Fucking shit stag do that was. Everyone's cards got swiped.
Yeah, man. No, there was not a period in Bucharest where I didn't feel like I was going to get mugged or otherwise robbed. We got in an Uber to go to a Pizza Hut because we were fucking starving and there was no more food left at the hotel. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's get an Uber and go there. And the guy, first of all, he took out his seatbelts. Like, he literally cut them out, like, out of the fucking car. I was like, where the fuck is the seatbelt? Like, what the shit? And that wouldn't have been so bad if he wasn't... that wouldn't have been so bad if he wasn't driving like a fucking lunatic. So it was like the most...
like you're waving across.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So it was just like, we were just...
roundabouts at 30 miles per hour.
Yeah, man. We were just fucking, like, in a death ride at that point. So, yeah, that was... That wasn't fun. Budapest, on the other hand, was pretty nice.
Okay.
Mostly because...
Not to be confused, I do mix them up with the names.
Yeah, but Budapest is in Hungary, Bucharest is in Romania. But Budapest was really nice. That event was really cool because we got to stay in like a hotel with a water park attached to it. Hotel guests get access to the water park for free. So we were just like, all right, cool, that's fucking awesome.
Have you been to any of
Like
these
lemonade.
places, Callum?
I've been to a few of them. I really love the Nordics. I think the Nordics
man.
is just a beautiful part of the world.
Remember you saying on the first episode of the podcast you like the Nordic tax model, so that was pretty nice.
I think I like a lot about the Nordics, but the thing is, I've often been there in summer, so I've not experienced Nordic winter. So I've gone there at like the best time of year.
Yeah.
So,
If you can drive in Finland in the snow, don't.
yeah, it's too bad. Yeah.
So
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, right?
I have
It's the
utmost
same.
respect for Finnish drivers because when we were in the minivan on the way to the venue once, it was snowing really hard. And at one point we hit a patch of ice and the fucking truck just started skidding that way. And we was like, oh shit, we're dead.
Dude, every time I go skiing in the Alps and these fucking coach drivers are just going around the bend so quickly and it's icy,
Mate,
I'm like, are you fucking
No,
mental?
no, they're not mental. They're just fucking really good at driving. Because when we did that, the guy literally just went, done, back on the road. It's like, all right, cool. I guess we're safe. Like, what the fuck? It was mad.
What, so he done a full, like, 90-degree turn or something? And
It wasn't that bad, but you could feel the fucking car
Dude,
sliding.
I saw someone do a 180 and then he just, like,
Kept going.
yeah, just like,
Keep
okay,
moving.
yeah, fuck it, that happened.
Mad respect.
And then carried on.
Mad respect, mate.
I got stuck in I've probably told you two before. When I went to Iceland, I got stuck. I was basically like, I got like the cheapest hire car possible. The recommendation is you get like a Jeep with like snow tires.
Yeah,
I was like, fuck that. I'm getting a Toyota Corolla with like snow tires. Too expensive for the Jeep. I'll be fine, whatever. And what you get when you go to Iceland is you get like a map of like a proper snow map, because if you get caught out, like the road's gone. It's just snow now. Like you will get stuck. And we were out like looking at some like, I don't know, some like
you're just telling me this story.
looking at some natural like landmark, a waterfall or something that was quite far away from Reykjavik, the main capital where we're staying, and check out the map, and the only road back to Reykjavik is now like an orange, and I'm like, oh shit, we have to leave like right now, like, and it's a long drive. You know, I would say it was probably like a 20-minute, maybe a 15-minute drive. We start going, and it's now just like pitch black, and there's just snow coming down, and we're dry, and it starts to get dark out as well. Like, so I'm in this tiny car. Eventually, after about 5 minutes of driving, it's like we're now like crawling along because it's like dangerous and it's dark, and I'm in this shitty car. I'm getting lapped, by the way, by like people in actual like vehicles. Like they're just like all these Jeeps just shooting past me while I'm crawling around. And it was like, to an extent, it was okay because I had all these like pillars with like cat eye reflective things, so I could tell I was on the road. It then got to a point where there were none of those anymore. So I'm driving in this car. I can't see. I don't know where an edge is going to be. So I'm driving, leaning over, looking over the front of my car to make sure there's like ground in front of the car. It's so heavy with snow, I can't see more than like 2 meters in front. It was.
You don't want to go down the fucking hole somewhere.
It was like actually really terrifying. And eventually, like the pillars came back, and we saw the pillars, and then eventually you could see like the light of the city, like in the distance, and then it was like a decline down. It was like It was the stupidest thing I'd ever done. And
That's
it was,
like some
the
iron lung
scariest
shit. I swear to God. Like
yeah. I was searching around in the darkness. Like it was so stupid. But it was funny. Like the people in the actual Jeeps, just like, you're a fucking
loser.
Literally they're probably going like 20 miles an hour, but I'm going like 4. So they're just like.
See, I bet they
You might
looked
as
at
well
you.
walk.
See, I bet they looked at you in your car and thought, he's a tourist. Because it's like, not only a tourist would buy that fucking car.
Not only a tourist, but a fucking idiot as well. And I like when they would go in front of me, I'd speed up a bit because I'm like, oh well, I know they're not going to drive off a cliff, so I'll just like I could get a bit of distance. But yeah, what should have been like a 15-minute journey literally took me like an hour and 20 minutes. Like it was, don't do that is my advice. So there you go.
Yeah, just slight tangent, but the scariest like video clip related to snow I saw was like this skiing one.
Man versus ice.
No, it was this guy. Basically, he fell down. Is it a glacier? Is that what they call it?
Oh, I think
It's
I
like
know the one you're
it's
talking
gone
about.
viral.
Yeah.
It's but just straight down, vertical, just falls down off a fucking cliff. Basically, he's skiing and then shit, I fell down this, and somehow he manages to, as he's falling vertically, He digs his skis into the snow and somehow stops at like the very smallest fucking little edge. Like after falling, I don't know, it must have been like 20 meters.
He's in like,
And
the
yet
entrance of the
somehow
cavern,
someone
isn't
roped him up and he's alive.
Yeah.
How?
He's because
How?
he's got.
It's gone absolutely viral.
The cameraman always survives, so that's how. Right, he was never gonna die. We watch the footage somehow, so yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is a good clip. You can put that clip up somewhere.
I think it was this one on the.
Oh, fuck that. Oh, fuck that. No. What?
Yeah, it's awful.
What?
Yeah, they get
He's
him
alive. How is he alive?
out. They get him out.
The thing is, when I watched the video, there wasn't like the showing he'd survived.
Because I'm in two different skiing group chats. I'm in my family skiing group chat because we went every year, and then I'm in my mates skiing group chat, which I'll be going with Ross next year. And in both chats, they've posted that clip. Just be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to go skiing.
Rightfully fucking so. Like.
Don't go off piece. Yeah.
Yeah, don't go off piece, basically. Right, what's the next topic?
I wanted to talk about tech bubbles. So obviously we've got an esports expert here, but we can talk more in general.
We're putting expert in a very like air quotes.
We've got the air
We're
quotes.
stretching the term quite far.
We've seen a lot of kind of
Don't talk yourself
boom
down,
and busts. So we've seen kind of the crypto market, all the hype, all the investment, all the VC going in, and that kind of collapsing. There's obviously the metaverse, a load of hype around that. There's all the there's what Meta are trying to do in VR, right? So there's all this.
Yep.
We've seen all these kind of tech bubbles happen. Where does esports fit within that? Is there a bubble? Is it sustainable?
Listen,
what's happening with these
esports.
companies?
Is esports like AI or is esports like NFTs?
That's, yeah, one way of putting it.
Kind of in the middle, if I'm being honest. Like, right now, we are facing one of the worst periods in esports history. We've had, like, a bunch of organizations go out of business. A bunch of people are pulled out from the space. Just yesterday, actually, we had, like, a smaller organization called Copenhagen Flames announced that they've gone bust. And those guys, I know those guys personally. They're really lovely lads. They weren't, like, a massive squad, so it's not going to affect the whole landscape a massive amount, but it will also... it will have an impact in the sense that that's a brand gone, that's a business gone, that's jobs lost, and there's a place that teams and players could have performed that will now no longer be a platform for them in that sort of sense. So right now we're going through a tough time. A lot of people have said it's a bubble because for the longest time we haven't been making a lot of profit. We're making a lot of money individually, but the businesses themselves have been in a bit of an awkward spot of its own right. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's like NFT sort of thing where it's like it's a thing that lasts for a couple of years before people realize how stupid it is. It's not stupid. It's a really good idea, I think.
Well, people
like,
love it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just it doesn't make money.
Yeah, that's the issue. That's why I say it's kind of in between because it's not as
No one loves
revolutionary,
NFTs other than people making money off of the NFTs.
which is no one.
Whereas the
anymore.
fans of esports.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
So it's different.
So I guess esports still is, but you know, a few years ago it was like, let's invest all of our cash here. This is like a growing market. We're going to be the early investors, and a lot of these investors put a lot of money into esports and have until now seen no return because the people who took the money didn't actually really have a proper plan of how to make any return, right? They didn't actually they didn't even care about the return. They just wanted to be part of the space. You know, you've got player salaries being like, I mean, Callum, I don't know if you would know, but you'd be surprised like how much some of these players are being paid.
I don't think I would be because I think ultimately it's content that people want to consume.
Is there viewers? How many viewers?
And obviously it's comparable, not directly comparable, but to certain sports. And I don't think it would surprise me that much because if people want to invest money in it, they're going to invest money in it, aren't they?
I think the problem is the fact that as
You're not a boomer, Callum. Like, let's not degrade him that much. He knows people make money
I'm
from
just
content.
sort of I'm interested in tech and aviation. That's just obviously my angle more than anything.
Yeah.
I think the issue is never with the player salaries. Like I think it makes sense the players that get as much money as they do, like the 800Ks a year sort of thing is like it's a mental amount of money. but it is appropriate, I think, for someone who's doing their job at the highest level possible. Like that's fair enough. I think the issue comes in the fact that I think that there's been, I hate to say Americanization of like the whole business, but basically like there's been a bunch of people who come in from VC money. They come in and they think, let's build a product first and worry about the finances later. So they get $50 million.
Yep.
They spunk it all away by making stupid player signings, paying out ridiculous money up the arse, inflating the salaries to the point that they're at now, but not figuring out a way to get a return on that investment. So then we get in a situation now where the money is tight, the recession's kicking into full gear, we've got less sponsors than ever, we've got less investors than ever, and now their primary revenue sources, which are sponsors and investors, those entities pull out. Where the fuck do you go from there? You don't go anywhere. You die. And that's what a lot of people are facing at the moment. And that's kind of the case for basically the entire tech industry, if we're being honest with ourselves. Like, it's rumored that Vice is going to close down now.
Well, they closed all their Asian operation, I think.
Yeah, well, they're set to file for bankruptcy, apparently. Yeah. That's what I read a report earlier today about that. So like it's just a thing across the entire tech space, but esports has it quite bad because for the longest time we've been operating in the red. There's very few entities that operate in the green, and certainly almost none of the top end guys are operating in the green because they're trying to spend like they're fucking Arsenal or Man U, trying to spend money out of the arse to try and be like the top end competitive nature, and that's okay for those guys to a certain extent because they've got hundreds of millions, billions of pounds to play with. And they've got that from the basis of their previous sort of years. So, and they have the business acumen as well to make that back. I don't think a lot of people have the business acumen to make that back in esports right now.
But I think the point is this happens in pretty much any industry, just in different times, different cycles. You know, streaming is probably going to go through that at some point in the near future. You know, there's too many streamers. Broadcast went through it, you know, over the past few decades. It happens in every industry, and I'm sure, you know, hopefully it will work out for the best once it's gone through this difficult stage.
And I guess the next part is what is like the solution to this problem, which we're going to solve right now.
MoistCritikal is the solution.
Right, so Richard Lewis, you might have seen, did a really good video on...
Shout out Richard Lewis, by the way. He absolutely won't see this podcast, but he's an inspiration to me, absolutely. So
yeah, he's great. He did a video about...
He sounds like a CEO.
Richard Lewis is an absolute fucking legend. He's a journalist, probably the most decorated journalist ever seen in the esports space.
Okay.
And he's just a very integral person. He'll always put like the players above everything else. He'll always put like the interest of the industry above his own.
He's got the hearts and minds of the people.
Yeah, he's got the heart. Well, he's got the interest of the people. He doesn't have their hearts and minds. Because I think the industry have done everything they can to sort of like demonize him, and I think that a lot of he and his community sort of feel that kind of way. But the key thing I think is the fact that he is also extremely fucking funny, as this was his reaction to fan feedback from one time when he when he sort of like the G2 team I mentioned earlier, he thought they were shit. And when they went out of the RMR in that match that I commentated, he had a reaction to everyone who did feedback on him, and it led to this incredibly legendary clip that I have to show you guys because it's fucking hilarious.
Okay.
And then, on the day they went out, what about today, dickhead? Did it age badly today, dickhead? Was it bad today, dickhead? No. This video aged like milk. Well, what about today, dickhead? How's my fucking milk taste today, dickhead? Oh, what about today, dickhead? You're not going to the major, dickhead. What about today, dickhead? How's the data today, dickhead? How's the data taste today? How's the data look? Put it in your computer, dickhead. Pull up your screens. Put the numbers in your little spreadsheet, dickhead. Are you at the major, dickhead? Or did you play shit and lose to tier 3 teams, dickhead? Yeah, dickheads in shambles.
He's a fucking legend.
I think the reason why he's controversial is because he'll reveal the truth no matter who it's going to piss off.
Yeah,
so he's broken
he
a lot
himself,
of stories.
because I've been such a big fan of his content since like 2016, and he himself has basically said like, yeah, I'm the person who tells the uncomfortable truth, and not a lot of people are ready to handle that, especially with the audience being where it is in the esports industry. So like Richard in that sense, he's the kind of like he's the esports fan for the adults more than anything else. Yeah. So yeah.
But yeah, we were talking about influence.
I've completely forgotten where this topic is going.
So we're going to solve.
I just mentioned MoistCritikal and no one cared.
Yeah, sorry about
That's
that.
So we're going to solve esports and make the
we absolutely
industry
won't.
make the industry profitable in the next 2 minutes.
We won't.
We won't. There's been talk. So Richard Lewis did a really good video on influencer marketing and people like MoistCritikal, Disguised Toast buying up esports teams, taking their
not buying up. They founded it from scratch.
Founding from scratch,
which is a key thing because they inherit none of the management structure or the problems with the other organizations. They do it from scratch. They do it completely differently. So that's very key thing to point out there, because even though it seems like a minor thing in general, but like a lot of the issues stem from those things that I just mentioned, because that's that's how we find ourselves in the situation we are today.
Yeah,
dickhead.
And they can they can bring all of their audience, take low investment. They don't have, like you said, all of the corporate bullshit surrounded by the running of all of these teams that have been around for a long time. Is that a positive step? Do you think that's going to impact the profitability in a good way for some of these teams?
I think so. Just because we've been trying to do it the old way for ages, and even though we presented this product, this image of the perfect industry, we presented this whole we presented the industry as it is today as being just. Sorry. I'm fighting the urge to say today, dickhead, now, like super badly. We presented the image of the industry it is now as like the perfect thing that has absolutely no problems whatsoever, when in reality, under the surface, everyone's been having major issues with financials because of the nature of the pull and the way that these companies present themselves. Whereas, and as a result, because eventually it's going to collapse. Eventually, we're going to hit a breaking point where these guys have to go. Where these brands, these companies, they're going to have to sort of concede, either sell out to someone who's got the money to buy this sort of thing and try again, or just fold entirely, which, to be frank, is probably the most likely option at the moment. And we just go scorched earth in that sort of sense. We just start from scratch, and the companies that will be up at the end of it will be teams like Moist Esports, and teams like an Ent, for example, who aren't the biggest names in the world right now. Certainly they've got their own positions in terms of they're a tier 1 organization, but they aren't G2, Fnatic, Astralis, Vitality, whatever, who have big name money and zero profits whatsoever. And the cool thing about teams people like MoistCritikal or like Toast and those guys is that they have their own revenue source outside of it, because they're big influencers.
Well, I mean, at least Moist, he was talking about, basically all of his Twitch revenues going towards funding this because it's just so expensive. But he's putting all of it towards it to keep it afloat.
Well, that's the key thing, right? Because you've got to get the money from somewhere. Because right now is the worst time to start an esports organization, and unfortunately for guys like Moist, they're in it for like a year or two. So they're really new into it. They're basically they've started just at the end of the good times. Now they're about to hit the wave of recession and have to deal with all that financial bullshit. And then they're also going to lose sponsors because they also have to run on the same fucking avenues in that sense. But these are also individuals. They'll be fine. They aren't beholden to shareholders who require you to make X amount of profit in a whole year. So they can do whatever they want. Yeah. They can take the deals that they want. They can run the business that they basically desire. And I think that's the way that in esports things should be done. Because we've been doing things in the VC way for so long. It's produced so many bad headlines, produced so much controversy, produced so much bullshit basically in the industry. And what have we got to show for it? An industry that has no real way of being sustainable whatsoever. I feel it will be the future in the end of it, but I think even to start with, we don't have to go scorched earth. We have to just start again from scratch and just let all the bad businesses collapse and just go at it from a completely different angle and try again. Because at this point, we're at I don't.
You need
see
to Ultron. You need to just
we need to Thanos this shit. That's
no.
what we need to do.
Thanos is only half rid of the problem. Ultron was just get rid of all of them.
Well, here's the thing, right?
It's another Marvel reference that Callum doesn't understand.
Here's the thing: if you wanted to go down that route, then I think halving actually is good enough at this point, because then you start to get into a position where there's a lot.
You've just lost half your jobs, mate.
I know. Cut that bit out. No. But in all seriousness, though, here's the thing: I think a lot needs to collapse in order for it to get better. Because I think that we're in an oversaturated market. I think there's way too much money going around that shouldn't be spent. And if you just basically just half the organisations out, and to be fair, we're probably going to go down that route anyway at this point, because FaZe are in trouble, EG are in trouble, on the gaming side, Activision Blizzard are in trouble, fucking Astralis are the only like profitable organisation in esports, and somehow I don't like that at all. But even G2 are in trouble. Like, and actually, to be fair, the reason is because they've just been cutting their spending pretty heavily. Which, I mean, I guess fair enough.
Not having success, are they?
That is one strategy to making profit. So I guess in that sense, they are doing all right. So we're probably going to get like a lot of losses anyway.
Esports in general is like the really weird industry of like the world revolves around money and making money, and this is the industry that doesn't make money.
Yeah, but I don't think yeah, you say
That's
that, but
venture
there's so many
capitalism.
like VC investments where, you know, in like a lot of startups which don't make money, you think like something, SoftBank Vision Fund, things that they invested in, like what's WeWork, that kind of thing, which is ultimately a property company, invested all this money into it, didn't make a penny. All they were was like a glorified, you know, property company rather than a tech company. It's not really, I don't think it's entirely unique, but they've just, obviously some are getting into trouble now.
It goes against common sense because your brain tells you for a company to exist, it must make more money than it's spending, but that's just not how.
Just not how it
That's
works.
not how venture capitalism works.
Yeah.
That's not how this investment works. But eventually, if you burn enough investors and enough people don't make a return at all on any of the millions they've invested, they'll go invest in something else, and that's where you're gonna. That's why these companies are starting to fold. Because there's only so many times you can get burnt before you're like, I'm no longer investing any money into anything to do with esports.
That sounds very intelligent, Ross. Can I just say, you've never worn your glasses at all, any podcast. Is that meant to make you look smarter or something? It's like you're hosting now, so you're like, I'm going to fucking put my glasses on and look like fucking Steve Jobs or something.
Yeah, it's because I drove, so I have my glasses. I thought I'd wear
That was
them.
yesterday.
You
Oh, yeah.
No, that was technically in podcast upload
Yeah.
time, like 6 weeks ago. I don't even know when we're uploading this.
Yes, I like to look intelligent with my glasses.
Yeah, okay.
Next question.
Fine.
No, I think this is my last question. I want to hear your thoughts about CS2.
Ah, yes, there we go. If I had a penny for every time I've been asked this question, I'd have about 10p. But, you know, it'd be 11 now.
It's a lot of times, yeah.
So,
11 pence, you're rich, mate.
yeah, mate, I'm rolling in the fucking money. That's my day rate, you know.
Don't tell your employers that. They'll charge you that, you know.
Cut that out. Cut that out. Yeah, CS2. Oh man, I'm a big fan of CS2. I haven't played it yet. I haven't been
What's
given access
different?
yet. What's different? Well, from what we can tell right now, the problem is that there's very little been like revealed about the game. They've had like a limited test where they've released it to a lot of the top guys in the, not only from the general audience but also for all the pro players who've got their access to it. And they've all had a chance to sort of like test it out and stream content. But the problem is that they've had this limited test that's only open to a handful of people, so no one really knows what the game, how the game plays and how it feels. And they've only let us play one map in the whole thing, so that we don't even know what different stages sort of like feel like. What I do know is that obviously it looks better. It looks like it's gonna like bring it. First of all, it'll bring the game up to date with like the modern standard for visuals in video games.
Is it like Unreal Engine or something? I don't know.
Source 2 engine.
Okay.
Which, for those of you who don't know, is the upgrade to the Source engine which Valve used for CS:GO.
And it's very dated now and somehow still.
Yeah, Source 2 came out in
along.
2005, basically.
Oh, wow.
Or Source 1 rather came out in 2005.
And that's still what Counter-Strike right now is being played on. So it needed
Sometimes old school games, though, they just have the longevity. You know, it's a classic.
Well, the fact CS:GO lasted as long as it did is proof to that particular point. But it has been well overdue an update, and so now we're inbound for that. So maps get a redesign, lighting gets a redesign.
Literally, this game is underpinning an entire industry. Not entirely, but like, I'm going to make up a stat here. 38%.
well, if they ballsed it up, then it would have a massive knock-on effect to like the whole esports side, and like if people didn't like the game, like I think I kind of call it CS:GO version 2 because they've changed actually very little purposefully because...
I mean, if you wanted to go down that route, then even the oldest versions of Counter-Strike, like 1.6, the original releases of the game, that's still very similar to what we have right now. Like, even if you were to go into 1.6 and start walking around Nuke or Dust 2 or Train, for example, you'd notice that you'd see some pretty clear changes. Like, you'd see the fact that Secret's not where it is now. You'd notice that there's a third corridor on Train, or you'd notice that the doors are different materials on Dust 2, or some of the doors are swapped or what have you. But, like, in terms of, like, structural changes, like, it's more mechanical changes than anything else, and visual upgrades as well. And in that sense, Counter-Strike has done really well for itself because it shows that the formula of the game from the first iteration of it back in the beta is still is like the perfect gameplay loop.
Yeah, it's not the same basically as like when a new COD comes out. It's a brand new game.
It's not a brand new game. It's exactly the fucking same.
CS2
every year.
Well, here's the thing,
CS2.
right? Because at the very least, they have completely wildly different maps. They have completely different weapons. So in that sense, it is a bit of a different game. It's just run on the same engine and everything like that. Counter-Strike is basically like massive upgrades every single new version of the game into the game that was before. The maps will get overhauled visually, but the structure will stay the same.
Yep.
The weapons will get slight gameplay changes. They'll get slight, skin variations or other visual upgrades, but they'll mostly stay the same. The utility basis, that will also stay the same. The other key factor we've had, obviously, is the upgrade of smokes.
Yeah.
Which everyone's like discussing that right now because it might well be the biggest meta shift that we have in the game's history of basically ever since the economy changes happened. So
they changed so little. They've changed so little about Counter-Strike since like the late 90s, early 2000s that some minor changes to how smoke works. Everyone's like losing their minds. Like this is going to change it like that because
Oh my god, this was red, now it's blue.
it's such a good formula.
not quite like that.
It's such a good formula that like the best thing to do is to just not mess with it. It's been so popular for so long.
But
Just don't.
genuinely, I do think some people would get in an uproar about shit like that. Like trivial changes, like the colour.
CS community would, yeah, they'll find.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're very resistant to
remember
change.
they had an upgrade to sound once where they changed a bunch of sound effects from the weapons, which actually I thought they sounded much better at the time. But everyone was like, "No, my sounds, what's happened?" And then it turns out that even after like a couple of months, everyone got used to it. And then now they go back and play the old versions of the game, and it's like, this sounds like shit. Like, it's the same thing with the YouTube thing. It's like, at first they're like, no, fuck YouTube. And now they're like, oh, I love YouTube. It's great. It's like the same thing with, it's like, it's just a bit of a habit within the CS community in general. Sorry, just very quickly. I have dropped the lid
It
to
rolled
your-
under the...
Oh, did it? Oh, okay.
We'll get it later.
I'll try not to spill
That means
it
you
then.
have to finish the bottle, bro.
Fuck off.
I think
No
the thing-
fucking chance.
Dude,
the
you
thing with
basically
it,
finished it
you mentioned
already.
about like the changes. I don't think that's necessarily unique to that community. I think it's just any sort of fandom. You know, you think if a creator does something as small as like change their hair color or change one way they do like their editing style on like videos or anything
Why
like
did
that.
you try this new video idea? Do what you've been doing for 2 years.
Exactly. So I
Oh.
don't think it's necessary. I think it's just the way people are once they get sort of not obsessed with something, but they enjoy something, they don't want it to change.
Yeah.
To get used to a certain way. That
Yeah.
things
It's
are
also
done.
like an esports thing. Like, they're never going to go, right, we're updating football. The goal's going to be this big. We're going to have
30
on one
circles,
side,
pitches.
Say
like-
that, but things like VAR,
But that-
VAR.
But
Yeah.
they haven't changed the gameplay, right? Esports is the only.
But it does
competitive
change.
thing.
It changes the pace, I guess.
yeah.
But in terms of fundamentally changing the rules of the game, that only happens in esports. And luckily,
Yeah.
Valve have realised, let's not do that. Let's not do what other esports do, which is make all these updates to make it fresh, because it's just you wouldn't have that in like any other sport environment. You're not going to change the rules of football. You're not going to change the rules of cricket or rugby. So my follow-up question was going to be, as you're very familiar with like the tier 2 scene, kind of like the king of the tier 2, you've seen all the matches.
King of the tier 2.
King of the tier
King
2.
of the hell.
He's getting crowned right now.
That one goes to my co-commentator, Josh. Actually, he is the king of tier 2. Like that guy literally.
Such a humble guy, my dude.
No, man, no. I'm being legit. I'm being legit.
Bring up his co-commentator.
No, I'm being legit. The way he fucking sits there and he goes for 3 hours of prep for one map of a game. It's like, and he will sit there and he'll watch all the tier 2 players and he knows everything that's going on in the scene. He talks to everybody, so he really is the king of tier 2.
Are people
I don't deserve
to you guys for like, oh, who should we pick up? Like, who's looking good? Like,
Well, you say that, and Bad News Eagles, you know the guys. Devil Walk, the coach for that team, he fucking messaged Dwayne and asked him, "What do you think of the new Bad News Eagles side? What do you think of the things we've done to improve shit?" And it's like that guy that's why he's the king of tier 2. Like everyone knows him as that sort of capacity. I'm just some sort of dude who just sits there and shouts.
So my question was going to be.
Oh, that's a good point. Like, because Callum won't get that. What's the difference between what your co-commentator does and what you do?
So there's two roles in commentary. There's play-by-play and colour, or you might hear that as lead and analyst, depending on which region of the world you're from. The play-by-play or the lead is the guy that you hear the most prominently, because he'll be the guy that's hyping up all the players. He'll be calling the action play-by-play.
Yep.
He scored! Fucking, it's gone in the... that's shit.
Yeah.
That guy, yeah. That's what I do. The colour or the analyst is the guy that comes in and adds the intricate detail about the player or the play,
Sort of stats.
Yeah, like the stats and things like that. And
This guy's been living in his mum's basement for 3 years, but he's come through finally with the second game.
Do you know what? You were right. You'd make a fucking awful commentator, Luke.
So with that said, my follow-up question was going to be, do you think CS2 is going to help the tier 2 scene? Are there going to be more players? Are there going to be more interest in the kind of grassroots side of the game? Is there going to be more interest in more younger people getting into the game?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. The immediacy, I don't think, is going to make much of a difference. There definitely will be an influx of players that wanting to try it out. And I think that most of them are going to stick around. There's always this theory going around. Like, everyone was saying that Valorant was going to kill CSGO. It didn't, obviously. And there was a lot of people that actually had a contrary opinion where it's like, Valorant won't kill CSGO. In fact, it will introduce a whole new bunch of players to the genre. And then eventually when Valve makes an update, or just over the time of natural progression of gameplay styles and preferences within the player base itself, they'll migrate over to Counter-Strike. And they'll try that game and they'll prefer it because it is a much more in-depth sort of nuanced kind of game. And in that sense, we'll get more players through Valorant. I think CS2 will speed up that process because now we have a new game. It's all shiny, it's all clean, it's all new. It will attract the Zoomers and they'll
all the streamers,
all the streamers, everyone like that will start playing it. It will get a lot of attention. And even though that attention will die down after time, I think there's going to be a new generation of players that will stick around after that hype and they'll be like, this is my game. And I think that that generation of pro players will eventually migrate in. It will take some time though, because the current new generation at the end of CSGO will become the stars at the beginning of CS2 in my eyes. So in that sense, it will aid the tier 2 players in that they'll become the tier 1 players. But the actual scene itself, I don't know how much it will change because it's always in flux anyway. Like there's always a team that you think, oh, they're amazing today, and then next week they're not. Like there was another team, another UK team that competed at the RMR called Viperio.
The what?
The RMR. Regional Major Rankings. Basically, it's the qualifier to the World
Love
Championship.
an acronym.
Sometimes I just get into these conversations and I forget that there's actual technical terminology to this shit and I just start rattling shit off and it's
It's
like,
the
you don't
same
understand,
thing
you
as
don't
like
understand.
the company we worked at. It's like they love acronyms.
Every industry has it. So.
Yeah. So there was another team at that event called Viperio. And they also had a crack at making it to the World Championship. They were the other UK team. And they didn't quite do as well because they were great enough at the time they qualified for the RMR, but then in the lead up to the RMR, all their online results were losses, and then when they got to the event itself, it wasn't all that great. So even just the space of like a week could make a difference in that sort of sense because that's
younger players are going to be less consistent. They're not going to have the years of reps that everyone else has
they'll get there eventually, and certainly the guys that are here now will get there eventually. But it will take time. Yeah. I don't know if that answers the question per se.
Yeah, I think so. That's all the time we have for today.
That's all the time you have, mate.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining our very first guest. It was very...
Joining our very first guest. Did you fucking break your English
joining
language
as our very first guest on the podcast. It's been amazing. It's
Well, thank you all for joining me, the very first guest.
And thank you for guests joining the very first me.
Thank you, guests, for the joining of the podcast for the first time.
You've made a major gaffe.
We end on gaffs. It's all about the gaffs. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
The
Do I have to do it as well?
No,
Yeah,
you
okay.
don't have to.
Yes.
Bye.